It wasn't just him. It was the whole system. I didn't say anything at first, because when someone tells you, it's not just him, there are only two possibilities. Either they're exaggerating, or you've just stepped into something way bigger than you thought. Outside the office, we stood there in silence for a moment. Cars passing, people walking by, normal life. But it didn't feel normal anymore. Explain, I said finally. They hesitated, then took a deep breath. You know how he acted, right? I nodded. Control, pressure, narrative building. Yeah. They swallowed. He wasn't the first. Cold. The pattern. There was someone before him. They continued. Different department. Same tactics. My mind started racing. What happened? They left. Fired. They shook their head. No. Pause. They signed something. Of course they did. The silence machine. And before that? I asked. They looked uncomfortable now. Same thing. I felt it. That slow, heavy realization. This wasn't random. This wasn't one bad boss. This was a system that removed problems quietly. The missing pieces. How many? I asked. They didn't answer directly, but the look on their face was enough. More than a few. The worst part. They don't fire people like that, they said. Then what do? They looked me straight in the eyes. They make them leave. And suddenly, everything I went through made perfect sense. Reframing everything. The pressure, the micromanagement, the public criticism. It wasn't just personal. It was procedural. A method. The system. Break the person down. Control the narrative. Get consistent feedback. Offer a quiet exit. And if they resist, make them the problem. And me? I had broken the flow. I didn't leave. I didn't stay quiet. I documented everything. And worst of all, I made it visible. That made me dangerous. Not just to him. To the system. The fear. You need to be careful, they said quietly. I frowned. Careful of what? They looked around again. Of what comes next. The warning. Because now that you didn't take the deal. They paused. They're going to push harder. That night, I went home. But I didn't relax. Didn't turn on TV. Didn't scroll anything. Just sat there. Thinking. Because this wasn't just a job anymore. This was a game. And the rules had changed. The decision. I had two options. Walk away. Or go deeper. Expose everything. Most people would stop here. Take the money. Move on. Forget it. And honestly, that's what they were counting on. But I couldn't. Not anymore. Because now I knew. I wasn't the first. And if I stayed silent, I wouldn't be the last. The plan, phase 2. If they had a system, then it left patterns. And patterns could be tracked. Step 1. Find others. Not just rumors. Actual people. Step 2. Get evidence. Not assumptions. Not stories. Proof. Step 3. Make it impossible to ignore. Not internally. Publicly. The risk. Because once it goes public, there's no control anymore. And that's exactly what they feared. The first break. The next day, I got an email. Unknown sender. No name. Just a message. I heard what happened. You're not alone. Attached. A document. My heart started racing as I opened it. Because what I saw inside wasn't just similar to my case. It was almost identical. Same language. Same complaints. Same structure. Different person. Different year. Same outcome. Voluntary resignation. The moment it became real, I leaned back in my chair and whispered to myself, this is real. The cliffhanger. But at the very bottom of the document, there was a note. Short. Simple. Terrifying. They watch everything. Don't trust email. I froze. Because I was reading it. On my work computer. And suddenly, for the first time in this entire situation, I felt something new. Not anger. Not determination. Fear. Because if that note was true, then this wasn't just a toxic workplace. It was something much more controlled. And I had just stepped right into the center of it. I didn't move. Not for a full minute. Just stared at the screen. Don't trust email. And suddenly, everything around me felt different. The realization. I slowly looked around the office. Same desks. Same monitors. Same quiet conversations. But now, it didn't feel like a workplace. It felt like a system. And I was inside it. Too late. I closed the document immediately. Disconnected from the network. Shut the laptop. But the damage might have already been done. Because if they were monitoring things, then they knew. The first sign. 10 minutes later, I got a message. From HR. Can you come by for a quick chat? My heart dropped. Too fast. Way too fast. The test. I didn't reply. Not immediately. Just sat there, thinking, was it a coincidence? Or did they see it? The walk. I stood up slowly. Every step toward HR felt heavier, like I was walking into something I couldn't control anymore. The room. Same room as before. But this time, it felt colder, more controlled. HR was there. Alone. At least. That's what it looked like. Thanks for coming, she said. I nodded. Sat down. The subtle shift. How are you doing? She asked. Simple question. Normal tone. But something about it felt off. Fine, I said. She smiled. But it didn't reach her eyes. The probe. We just wanted to check in, she continued. Make sure everything is okay. There it was again. That word. Okay. I nodded. Yeah. Everything's fine. The silence game. She didn't speak for a few seconds. Just watched me. Like she was waiting. For something. The push. You haven't accessed anything unusual today, right? She asked casually. There it was. Direct. My pulse spiked. But I didn't react. Like what? I asked. She tilted her head slightly. Just anything outside your normal work. The lie. I shook my head. No. And for a moment, I thought that was it. But then, she nodded slowly. Okay. Pause. Then she added, if anything comes up, you'll let us know. Not a question. A statement. Confirmation. That was all I needed. They knew something. Maybe not everything. But enough. The exit. I stood up. Of course, I said. And walked out. But this time, I didn't go back to my desk. The shift in strategy. Because now, everything had changed. This wasn't just about collecting evidence anymore. This was about not getting caught. Going dark. I stopped using my work laptop. Stopped using company Wi-Fi. Stopped saying anything unnecessary. Even casual conversations felt risky now. The outside channel. That night, I used my personal device. Different network. Different account. And replied to the anonymous sender. I need more information. I hesitated before hitting send. Because once I did, there was no going back. The reply? It came faster than expected. Then we can't talk here. My chest tightened. Where? I typed. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then, tomorrow, 7 p.m. Outside. No location. No details. Just that. The risk. Everything about this screamed danger. Unknown person. Unknown intentions. But also, potential answers. The choice. I stared at the screen for a long time. Because deep down, I knew something. If I went, I might finally understand how deep this goes. But I also might be walking into something I can't control. Meanwhile, what I didn't know was that inside the company, things were already moving. Fast. Because while I was trying to stay under the radar, they were preparing something else. Something final. The next day, the entire day felt off. Too quiet. Too normal. Like the calm before something bad. People acted like nothing was happening, which made it worse. The email. At 4:12 p.m. I got another message. From legal. Subject. Notice of review outcome. Preliminary. My heart started racing. Too soon. Way too soon. I opened it. And the first line made everything clear. We have identified additional concerns regarding your conduct. I froze. Because now, they weren't just watching me. They were building something. Against me. The trap tightens. I leaned back in my chair. Slowly. Because I understood now. They weren't reacting. They were planning. And whatever I was walking into at 7 p.m. might be my only chance to stay ahead. The cliffhanger. 7 p.m. I stood outside. Cold air. Empty street. No one around. For a moment, I thought it was a mistake. That no one was coming. Then, a voice behind me. You shouldn't have come alone. I turned. And what I saw made my stomach drop. Because it wasn't just one person. There were two. And one of them, I recognized. From inside the company. Someone I thought I could trust. And that's when I realized. This wasn't just about exposing the truth anymore. This was about surviving it. I froze. Not because there were two people, but because I recognized one of them. And I wasn't supposed to. The familiar face. It was them. The same coworker. The one who warned me. The one who sent the first screenshot. The one who said, don't trust the meeting. And now, they were standing there. With someone else. Watching me. The silence. For a second, no one spoke. Just cold air. Streetlights flickering. And that feeling in your gut. When something isn't adding up. The first words. You came, the coworker said. Their voice was different. Less nervous. More controlled. I didn't move. You said not to trust anyone, I replied. They gave a small smile. Good, they said. That didn't help. The second person. I shifted my focus to the other person. Older. Calm. Watching everything. Not surprised. Not curious. Like they already knew how this would go. Who's this? I asked. The coworker didn't answer immediately. Then, someone who went through the same thing. My chest tightened. The reveal. The older person stepped forward. I used to work there, they said. Used to. Of course. The pattern becomes real. What department? I asked. Different one, they said. Same outcome. I didn't like how calm they were. Like they had already processed all of this. And I was just catching up. The truth bomb. You're not the first, they said. I nodded slowly. I know. They shook their head. No, they said quietly. You don't. The shift. Something about the way they said that made everything feel heavier. What am I missing? I asked. They looked at the coworker, then back at me, and said, it's not just your boss. I exhaled slowly. I figured that part out. But then they added, it's not even just your company. That's when everything stopped. The bigger picture. What? I said. They didn't rush. Didn't dramatize it. Just said it like a fact. Same structure. Different companies. My mind struggled to process it. That's not possible, I said. But even as I said it, it didn't feel impossible anymore. The explanation. Mid-sized companies. Fast growth. Weak oversight, they said. Managers with too much control. HR focused on risk, not people. Each word felt familiar. Too familiar. They don't coordinate. They continued. But they operate the same way. A pattern. Not a conspiracy. Something worse. A system that builds itself. The role of people like him. People like your boss thrive in that environment, they said. Because they understand something most don't. I leaned forward slightly. What? They looked straight at me. That perception is more powerful than truth. Silence. Because that was exactly what I experienced. The betrayal. I turned to the coworker. Why are you involved in this? I asked. They didn't hesitate. Because I've seen it before. That's not what I asked. They held my gaze. And for the first time, they looked uncomfortable. The answer. I needed to know if you'd push back, they said. My stomach dropped. What? If you would fight, they continued. Or if you'd take the deal. Cold. So this was a test. I asked. They didn't deny it. The realization. You used me, I said. Quiet. Controlled. They shook their head. No, they said. We needed someone like you. Needed. The truth. People leave, they said. They always leave. Except you didn't. And suddenly, I understood. I wasn't random. I wasn't just a victim. I was an opportunity. The offer. We're building something, the older person said. I narrowed my eyes. What kind of something? They paused, then said, a case. Against who? Against the company? I asked. They shook their head. Against the system. That word again. The risk. This isn't just about proving one manager is toxic, they said. It's about showing a pattern. A legal one. Legal. Now it made sense why they were here. The ask. We need your evidence, they said. All of it. I stared at them. Because this was bigger than anything I planned. The problem. If I give you everything, I said slowly, I lose control. They nodded. Yes. At least they were honest. The stakes. And if I don't? I asked. The coworker answered this time. Then you fight alone. The decision point. I looked between them. One person who used me. Another who had already lost. And somewhere in the middle. Me. Still in it. Still being targeted. The cliffhanger. Take the night. The older person said. Decide what you want. They turned to leave. Then stopped. And added. Because tomorrow? I frowned. What happens tomorrow? They looked back. And said the one thing I wasn't ready to hear. They're going to make it official. Official. Meaning documented. Meaning irreversible. Meaning they were about to finish what they started. Final line. And just like that, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about exposing the truth anymore. It was about choosing a side. And whatever I chose, there was no coming back. I didn't sleep. Again. But this time it wasn't stress. It was clarity. Because for the first time since all of this started, I understood exactly what was happening. Two sides. Not good versus bad. Not truth versus lies. Something simpler. Control versus exposure. And I was right in the middle of it. Morning. I walked into the office knowing one thing. This was the day. The day they make it official. The day they decide what to do with me. The email. It was waiting. Of course it was. Subject. Formal review outcome. No preliminary this time. No soft language. Just final. I opened it. And there it was. The verdict. Based on our internal review. I skimmed the first lines. Didn't matter. I already knew how this would go. We have identified multiple violations of company policy. There it is. Including unauthorized recording. Of course. And conduct inconsistent with company standards. Clean. Professional. Controlled. The decision. We are proceeding with termination, effective immediately. I sat there, reading that line, over and over again. Not shocked. Not angry. Just still. The end. For most people, that would be it. Pack your things. Leave quietly. Disappear. Just like the others. But not this time. Because this time, I was ready. The last move. I stood up. Didn't rush. Didn't panic. Just walked. Straight to HR. The final meeting. Same room. Same table. Same people. HR. Legal. And now, me. Have a seat, they said. I didn't. I read the email. I said. They nodded. Professional faces. Prepared. The script. We understand this is difficult. I raised my hand. Save it. They stopped. The shift. Because something had changed. Not in them. In me. I'm not here to argue, I said. That caught them off guard. Because that's what they expected. Emotion. Defense. But instead, I reached into my bag and placed something on the table. Not a USB this time. A folder. Thick. Heavy. The confusion. What is this? Legal asked. I looked at him. Insurance. The truth. Inside that folder? Everything. My evidence. The recordings. The documents I received. The patterns. And most importantly, copies. Their reaction. HR's expression changed. Subtle. But I saw it. Because now, they understood. I wasn't alone anymore. You think this ends with me being fired? I said calmly. No one answered. So I continued. Because it doesn't. The reveal. I've already shared everything, I said. That wasn't entirely true. But it didn't matter. Because now, they had to assume it was. The pressure flips. With who? Legal asked. I smiled slightly. Does it matter? Silence. Because it did. The reality. They weren't dealing with an employee anymore. They were dealing with a risk. The final line. I'm fine with leaving, I said. HR blinked. You are? I nodded. Yeah. Pause. Then I added. But I'm not leaving quietly. The turning point. Legal leaned forward. What exactly are you suggesting? I held his gaze. I'm suggesting we both walk away clean. Translation. No termination on record. No escalation. No investigation that goes public. The game. Because now, it wasn't about winning. It was about leverage. The longest silence. No one spoke for a full 10 seconds. Then, legal exhaled slowly. We'll need to review this. Of course they would. The exit. I nodded. Take your time. And turned to leave. But right before I walked out, I stopped and said one last thing. You should also review his history. HR looked up. Sharp. What do you mean? I didn't turn around. Just said. You already know. And walked out. Outside. The air felt different. Lighter. Not because I won. But because now, they couldn't control the outcome anymore. The wait. Hours passed. Then evening. Then night. And finally, a message. From HR. Short. Simple. Can we talk tomorrow? The cliffhanger. But before I could even process that, another message came in. From the anonymous contact. Just one line. They're already trying to contain it. My chest tightened. Because that meant one thing. They were moving fast. Again. And whatever happened next would decide everything. Final line. Because now, this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about whether the truth would actually come out. Or disappear like it always does. I didn't answer right away. 2 messages. 2 different worlds pulling me in. HR. Can we talk tomorrow? Anonymous. They're already trying to contain it. And me? Standing right in the middle. The last night. I sat in the dark for a long time. No TV. No music. Just silence. Because I knew something most people don't realize until it's too late. Winning doesn't always look like winning. The meeting, final. Next morning. Same building. Same hallway. But it felt like a completely different place. Like everything that happened here was about to be erased. Inside the room. HR. Legal. No boss. Of course. He was already gone. Removed. Contained. Like none of it ever happened. The offer again. We've reviewed everything, legal said. I nodded. And he folded his hands. We're prepared to revise the outcome. There it was. The deal. No termination, he said. Mutual separation. Clean. Neutral. Safe. For them. The condition. In exchange, he continued, we asked that all materials remain confidential. Of course they did. The choice, final. This was it. The moment everything came down to one decision. Expose everything. Or walk away. The truth. And here's the part most people won't understand. I didn't answer immediately. Because it wasn't as simple as right versus wrong. The reality. Going public meant legal battles, stress, time, risk, and no guarantee anything would change. The system. Because systems like this, they don't collapse overnight. They adapt. They survive. The message. That's when my phone buzzed again. The anonymous contact. Whatever you choose, make sure it matters. I stared at that line. For a long time. The decision. Then I looked up. At HR. At legal. And said, I'll take the deal. Silence. Not relief. Not victory. Just quiet understanding. But here's the thing. That wasn't the end. Not even close. The twist. Because what they didn't know was that I never needed to go public. Why? Because the moment I realized how the system worked, I changed the game. Weeks later. New job. New place. Different company. Different environment. But this time, I wasn't just another employee. The truth, finally. I stayed quiet. Publicly. No posts. No leaks. Nothing traceable. But privately, everything I had was already out there. Shared. Distributed. Impossible to contain. The fallout. A few months later, I heard things. Quiet things. Internal reviews. Policy changes. People leaving. Not loudly. Not publicly. But consistently. The boss. Gone. Completely. No trace. Like he was never there. The system. Still standing. But cracked. The final realization. That's when I understood something important. You don't always destroy a system by attacking it head-on. Sometimes, you break it from the inside. Quietly. Patiently. Final line. So yeah, they tried to ruin my career. Push me out. Erase me. And in the end, I let them think they won. Because that's exactly what allowed me to win. End. Fire.